Hey, everybody, and welcome to another live stream. My name is Matt. I'm with the Xiao Nation. I'm joined by Cyrus from Cyrus Jensen, right?
Correct.
And Xiao from iChongqing and Jorah Kai. Today we are discussing a book that Jorah just finished, and I thought, I was approached by iChongqing to see if maybe we could put together a bit of a discussion about it. It's kind of an interesting book. I'll let Jorah describe it, but we live in an interesting time in this pandemic where we are approaching the fall. We're seeing the potential for rises in countries in rates of infection. We've learned a lot from the first wave, and in some countries, the continuation of the first wave. And we have had all of these personal experiences. Everybody in the world has had a personal connection to COVID-19. And so Jorah shared his personal connection via this book, and we're going to go through the book. We're going to talk a bit about it, and hopefully we'll have an interesting little conversation / debate. If you have any comments during this or anything you might want to add, or even sharing your own personal story as we kind of go through this journey of Jorahs, then go ahead and share it in the comments section. So first of all, I'm going to introduce myself, and then we'll go around the round table. My name is Matt. If you don't know me, I run a YouTube channel called the Xiao Nation. If you're watching this on Cyrus's channel or iChongqing, we're streaming on multiple platforms on Facebook and YouTube, on Xiao, and then Cyrus's YouTube channel, iChongqing's YouTube and Facebook channel as well. So I normally travel around the world. So I spent the virus period kind of bouncing between China and then over to United States just before they did their lockdown, and then back to China right as they were locking down. So that's my little experience. I'll pass you over to Cyrus, and you tell us a little bit about you and your channel.
Absolutely. Hi, everybody. My name is Cyrus. I want to welcome you to today's live stream. And I run a channel here on YouTube, and my thing is really blogging about China, talking about its role in society today. So, I'm a former China expat. I lived there for over 10 years in the city of Shanghai and Hong Kong. Lived in about 10 years in China. So anyways, I've moved to Canada now. I'm based here, and actually I have a marketing company that we focus on doing Chinese marketing, things like that. I usually travel back to China at least a couple times a year for business. So we were scheduled to go back this summer in July to Guangzhou, where my wife's family is from. That, of course, was canceled. So we were able to just stay here in Canada, throughout the entire COVID, epidemic. So, yeah, I'm excited to share some experience of what the Canadian community has done. Specifically where I'm at, it's very interesting because we have a very large Chinese community, and I think that's really helped us, get ahead of that curve. So I'll talk more about that later. But very happy to be here. I think we're going to have some really interesting perspectives. Obviously, hear this wonderful book, and we're going to have a great panel tonight.
Sounds good. Xiao?
Hi, hello. So I'm Xiao. Actually, I'm from Chongqing in China, and today I'm here. I'm very happy to be here, and I have an opportunity to talk with this COVID-19 related experience, as also Kai's book here with all of you participated and our audience all here. So I actually work for iChongqing, this news platform that based in Chongqing, this city, and we have YouTube channel and Facebook, Twitter, and you can all find us there. We are actually covering the news about what's going on in this big city in China, which holds like 32 million people. And of course, like during the epidemic time, we have been working day and night. Actually, our whole team is covering the news on the COVID-19. So have people abroad, like English news, English platforms. Yeah, we are, and to inform the people from abroad to know what's going on really here, like in a big city in Chongqing. And Kai actually is our kind of we can say colleague, and we're happy actually to see his book now already published, and more people will just read more about what's his from his eyes, what was going on during COVID-19 time. So I'm here. So today, happy just to share my experience.
All right. Jorah, tell us about yourself.
Hey, my name is Jorah Kai Wood. My friends call me Kai, but Jorah is also okay. I'm a former music professional. I used to be a DJ and a music producer back in Canada for many, many years, traveling around, playing shows with a band called the Root Sellers. For the last about 6 years or so, I've been living in China as an English teacher, a writer, and for the last year or two, an editor, helping out with Chongqing Daily News and iChongqing for their kind of Western platform news. So I'm sort of trying to follow the Hemingway path of a newspaper editor turns writer. And that put me right smack dab in the middle of this whole Chongqing lockdown and the China lockdown. And it's a very interesting place to be.
Tell us a little bit about your book. Now, you wrote this book. How did it start, and how did it sort of progress through?
Sure. Well, we write the news every day, and basically when the Spring Festival started, that was going to be the 1 week of the year where I could really just sleep in and relax. I wasn't teaching, wasn't writing, maybe work on one of my books and novels for fun. And all of a sudden, the rumors kind of started just before January 20th that there was a virus, and be careful, a little bit of mask hysteria began. And then we found out that there were lockdowns happening inside China. And we switched from taking a break to covering, the China epidemic coverage, which was quite serious. And having to edit the news, not really being a virus expert at the time, I started doing a lot of research because I thought it was really important that this was accurate and I wasn't editing some crucial information away, trying to fix the grammar or something like that. So I began to do a ton of research, and in doing that, I kind of learned a lot of things. And then the Canadian news, I have some people I know, and CTV started doing live interviews with me as the Canadian in the China lockdown. What's it like to be in China during this time? And then I was approached to start a CTV blog, a daily blog on their national news page. And iChongqing was also interested in kind of my experience. And so I started syndicating this blog with my daily information, what I was learning about the virus, how I was handling the lockdown just here with my wife in our little apartment. It was like a tin can kind of spaceship. We were all on our own. And that's how it began. It was a blog and kind of a journey.
Can if somebody wants the book, first of all, because there's some people in the comments section, what is the best place to see it? The Amazon link that I have, or what would be the best way?
Well, it's kind of in a rush and a wait. We really rushed to get the book out. Then there was a fair bit of bureaucracy in editing it and waiting for it. It was my first time publishing in China, which was very illuminating, but it's not a very quick process. There's a lot of hurdles, and due to all the geopolitics and the very sensitive subject, it took a while to get the book out. So long story short, it is available, the English edition, on the Amazon link. There's a Chinese version about to drop as well, and there's a North American edition coming out, but that's not out yet. If you want to buy it, if you're an English-speaking person who wants to buy it, it's on the Chinese Amazon page. So if you use Google Chrome, I think that'll automatically translate for you. Otherwise, you're going to have to navigate the Chinese Amazon.
Okay. Cyrus,
Yeah.
Each of us had unique situations where we were covering the pandemic in our own way. How are you doing it through your channel? What was your process?
It's interesting. Kind of the first things that were happening here in Vancouver is, because we have a very large Chinese population here, we started hearing a lot of this very early, and a big thing was we started seeing face masks being worn. We started to noticeably see, the frequent Chinese restaurants that we'd go to having less and less people, the shopping malls being less and less crowded. So we kind of saw this coming. But me, as far as covering it as well, I started seeing how the Western media started to shift, and really just, there were so many, there's so much fear involved in Western media. I don't know if you guys remember early on, they would have these videos, these random videos where if someone got COVID-19, they would start shaking on the street and then immediately pass out. And it's like, oh my gosh, like it's almost this thing, like if you get COVID, you're going to die immediately. And so I remember these guys on Twitter were just going off on how awful this is. And everyone, there's just so much of it, as we know. I mean, it is it obviously is a very serious condition, but the reality is the majority of people are recovering, and sometimes that was just never highlighted. So I really started making some videos just talking about, China and what's really trying to go on, just trying to kind of provide some truth in there. And then I made one video that said why this American expat supports China, during the coronavirus, and just highlighting like, look at, like, you guys don't realize what China is going through right now, and this was before we had lockdowns here. I said, look, like, these guys have sacrificed tremendously, and we'll talk about that more later. But I was just wanting people to try to understand a little bit more about China, and that's kind of how I started my channel, earlier this year, talking about COVID and relating that.
Jorah mentioned in his book, actually, I read it through yesterday. You were talking about that time that the news came out that the guy collapsed and died in the street, and you had to dispel that
in my city,
in Chongqing. Yeah. Tell us a little bit about that. Remind us of that story.
Yeah, I mean, actually, Chongqing did really, really well for a city, as Xiao mentioned, like 32 million, almost the population of Canada. We only had, I think, 576 cases during that initial 2-month epidemic and 6 fatalities. So those numbers are really reasonable, and I think it was because of our extreme response. But that said, several people got very, very ill. Some of them died, and it was there was an article that came out that said we were predicted to be the next epicenter, one of the next huge epicenters, because we were 800 kilometers from Wuhan. You could drive
the proximity,
proximity. I mean, it was a day trip. It was a day trip on a time where millions of Chinese were making trips to celebrate Spring Festival. So there was a legitimate fear, and I'm really grateful that Chongqing's response was as strong as it was. That being said, though, it was I think a waiter in a restaurant, and the news that came out at first was that he literally, just like those videos Cyrus mentioned, and I saw them all too, and it was shocking. There was a lot of fear and misinformation at the time, and he just apparently fell down and collapsed and died. The truth that came out later was that he had been sick for a while, which is still pretty bad because that means he was symptomatic, shedding virus and that kind of thing for a while. But he was actually sick for a while and finally did collapse and died later in hospital, I believe. So it wasn't as extreme as was initially shared, but it was still shocking. It was like 2 kilometers from my house. This was in my neighborhood.
So just real quick, Jorah's book is interesting because it's a diary. It's a day-by-day diary of his life. And you know what's funny is that, like, we can look at things through a lens through the past, and obviously we can see the whole picture today, and then you can look at it from like a political perspective, and that's a different lens. But it's really interesting to do the daily grind of going through this every single day while you're on the ground in Chongqing. And so if you're interested in cutting through all the kind of fluff and the politics of it all, I mean, this is a guy that was telling his story day by day by day, and mixing in funny stuff. Like, let me see here. I pulled some little things. You include stuff like this, where it was literally a diary. So you're talking about your personal life, and there was a moment where you were frustrated that you were looking at all these pictures of your normal life, and the new normal was kind of circumventing that old normal. And so you were talking about that it's a very human story, but it also tells a story from a very good timeline perspective. You're not able to say tomorrow this happened and then the next day there was a long gap in time between this and that. You literally are following every single day. So it's a very nice way to casually read a person's life as they went through this pandemic. How many days did it cover, Jorah?
About 60 days, I believe. I started as a baseline January 20th. I started counting. The day 1 in the journal was actually day 1 of lockdown, which was the first day of the Lunar New Year. I remember it was a Saturday night. The 24th was like our Chinese New Year's Eve. So I was at my wife's parents' family house watching the big gala show and everything. And that was actually something we almost canceled. We were debating whether any of those dinners were even a good idea. We have a baby in the family. We have older relatives. And we decided to do that dinner, and then the next morning we woke up at home and we thought, okay, that's it, we're just home. And we actually didn't. I discouraged my wife from visiting the baby and the family and her parents for like close to 50 days, because I thought even the taxi drive over to the house is incorporating risks, and we kind of had this idea, if we're all safe at home and we just stay safe at home, we might continue to be safe at home. So we really tried our best.
Cyrus, it's funny. I was talking to you yesterday, and you were talking about how your life, even though, like, what would you say Canada is percentage-wise normal, or where you're from, Vancouver? Is it 80% normal? Is it 90% normal? Would you say you're 95%?
Oh, I mean, yeah, pretty much. I mean, where I'm at, I live in Richmond, which is, if you've ever flown into Vancouver, that's where the international airport is here. And yeah, Vancouver, Richmond, I mean, I'd say 85%. I mean, you're just going to see signs saying, let's keep the social distancing. I mean, restaurants, they're going to have certain tables are going to be X'd, so they can keep some distance. But I mean, shopping malls are busy. I mean, we're on a mall on the Saturday, Sunday. It's busy. People are wearing face masks. And then a lot of stores are requiring face masks to go in. It's kind of a store by store basis. But I mean, that being said, I mean, like we go out for dinner as a family here. It's interesting. My former career in China, I was a golf professional for many years.
Yeah, that's what I wanted to know.
Yeah, and so what's amazing is both in China and here, this has been an unbelievable. COVID's been the best thing to golf since Tiger Woods came. And it's been amazing because it's actually, you think about it, if you want to try to stay active,
the perfect sport,
and socially distance and be in fresh air, you're not in close contained areas. You're in a massive field. You can easily walk by yourself. And so, it's actually been a savior, for a lot of us because, during the peak lockdown, I actually had golf courses closed down for probably about 3 weeks, I'd say 3 to 4 weeks, but then they reopened, and it was just beautiful and everyone had nothing to do. So we just played golf all the time. So.
Jorah, awesome. You explained in your book that it's broken into 4 segments. Can you talk about that and why you broke it into those 4 segments?
Yeah, sure. So I really kind of thought, I have a graphic at the end of my book. Let me see if I can pull this up for a moment. There's some graphs and charts. This is one I'm going to pull. And it kind of, to me, it encapsulated, this was like a graphic that was on social media, and it basically talks about the fear zone, the learning zone, and the growth zone. And like Cyrus, I believe, mentioned it, and you mentioned as well, there was so much fear at the beginning, misinformation, and people also finger pointing. You could see it in the media, you could see it in politicians and individual people. I heard all kinds of things in Toronto and Vancouver, people ganging up on maybe Chinese Canadians and this kind of thing, because they thought, hey, what's going on with this? And it was so much fear. And then as I began to learn a little bit about what's going on, I learned that like my city, Chongqing, had this incredible measure. They took incredible, some called it draconian, but very effective security measures. I felt a little bit more comfort, and then I had learned a little more about the virus and realized, okay, there's things you got to do. You have to adjust your behavior. Like Cyrus said, play some golf. Don't be inside breathing, air in a movie theater right now. Maybe you got to make adjustments. So I considered it almost like becoming an astronaut, learning a series of protocols that would help us to be healthier and safer. And as that happened, I broke the book into 4 sections: mindfulness, movement, meaningful engagement, and mastery. Because to me, it really felt like first you got to get a hold of fear, be in the moment, quit being anxious and scared about unknown future. And that's a mindfulness practice. I'm also a big believer in Stoic philosophy and kind of Buddhist mindfulness. I think those really help ground me. And then there's the movement section where everyone's gaining 30 pounds, eating ice cream, late at night, just watching TV and freaking out. So getting that exercise, playing golf or going for a walk. I did some martial arts up on the garage in the sun some days, just trying to feel my body. My wife was taking an online salsa dancing class that like 10,000 people around China were signed into. And it was really important to kind of establish a new normal and a new baseline that had all of the healthy aspects of a day, even if we're locked inside. And then the 3rd and 4th, meaningful engagement would be, sharing the positive news I found, calling my grandma to make sure she's okay, making sure my parents bought some masks before they all sold out. They were luckily way ahead of the curve on a lot of that, as were a lot of my friends who followed me on social media. And then the last part was mastery. This idea that like being able to spend 2 months at home could be the biggest waste of your life, or this incredible opportunity to get 10,000 hours in on your guitar, write the novel I've always wanted to do, which was kind of what I did. So it was sort of poetic in that sense. I'm a novelist with all these half-written books and drafts and copies. And I thought, if I die, I'm not going to be the author that I trained 40 years with all my creative writing diplomas and things like that. I'm going to be an unpublished writer. And I just kind of put my ass to the fire and said, well, at least I'm going to publish a daily blog. And if I go, this will be the story that I was here. And that's what it took to get a book out. It was a lot of work. I'm really proud of it.
Finishing a book is like climbing to the top of a mountain, I think. It's quite an achievement. What about you, Cyrus? Did you finish anything of anything big? What were you doing during this period?
Yeah,
Like that
you know, it's amazing.
you were a mastery.
You know, one of, I think some of my followers here, they'll know I have three young children under the age of 5. So it was quite amazing. I really worked on my sleep. And this is this is something that you know, so it's really interesting as well. I wear this band called Whoop. I don't know if anyone's heard of this. It's WHOOP. It is it's a band that's used by a lot of athletes around the world, and this company has absolutely exploded during COVID, because what's really interesting is it tracks everything from how much sleep you get to your heart rate, to your resting heart rate, your heart rate variability, all of these things. But basically every day that you're active, it will give you a recovery score, you know, like, so if, you know, based on yesterday's strain and the 6 hours you slept last night, on a scale of 0 to 100, you are recovered this much. Now, what they did is they started monitoring your respiratory rate. And what they would notice is that anybody that was diagnosed with COVID, your respiratory rate would shoot up dramatically the next day. So this wearable device almost became, you know, this, you know, like an early indicator for COVID. And so it's a really interesting piece of equipment. And so, for instance, going back to the golf, the PGA Tour, they bought 1,000 of these and distributed them to every player and caddy on the tour, and everybody. So it's almost like required now, you know, for these athletes to have this. But one of the things, so going back to that, is I was monitoring my sleep, and, you know, I started, my kids go to bed at 8:30. I mean, I was like trying to get to bed by 9 every night, which is just normally what I don't do. But I was just really working on my sleep, trying to, you know, stay active in the gym, you know, just again, I love what Jorah said. You know, you have 2 months. You could either be the worst 2 months of your life, or like, I mean, it's kind of, you know, and I don't want to say this, you know, kind of, you know, inappropriately, you know, because I know a lot of people were suffering, you know, that lost their jobs, you know, financially struggling, you know, but if you're able to hang tight for 2 months and you're really able to, you know, like for my family, like we had a tremendous amount of time with the 5 of us, my wife and our 3 kids. We taught our daughter how to ride a bike. You know, she learned it within a week, because that's all we're doing every day, right? You're just riding bikes. So we used it as a great time to gel as family. You know, you could use it to write a book like, you know, Kai has done here. And I think it's what you make out of it, you know, and a positive attitude is really important.
Xiao, well, let me bring you into the conversation a little bit. Talk to us personally. What did you do during the initial 2 months when it was a total lockdown? Were there any things that you did that you were able to, like, accomplish some goals that you became a master at, or enforce your mastery on something?
Well, like I would say it in 2 aspects, you know. One is in work, another is like the life thing. So start with work, because I'm a journalist, like reporter, right? So from iChongqing, like Kai said, he started to notice that this is like details of thing. Also, when he start to edit our articles, because it's in English. So that's actually at the very beginning when the news come out. You know, well, our responsibility it was covering the whole news, what's going on in this city, and it's so much. And we are actually, most of us stayed at home during that 2 months. And but it's like we need to to reach out for more people and reach out to these different departments to see what efforts they have done and how the situation in Chongqing was. So we are like updating a lot of news, writing and interviews a lot during that period. I was thinking we really work like twice of the time, I think, compared with like normal times. Yeah,
it's almost like you guys were essential workers. I mean, journalism and news and healthcare, it was all things that people were craving, and that was important for people's daily life, to stay informed and healthy. And I mean, I would imagine a third of that would be food delivery in China. That was the ultimate.
Definitely.
Yeah. So for the work thing, you asked me to go. Actually, during that time, the traffic to our website, to our social medias, is really grow a lot, because we offer like many first-hand information. So many people overseas come to visit our website or YouTube channel like this to get to know what's really going on, because these footages is not everybody, you know, can easily get unless you are exactly here and working on the street like that. And then it's like, well, like after that, you know, like back to Kai's book, it's like also it's kind of idea that we knew that Kai was writing diaries every day, like that. And so we approached it to him that he said, until when he started, he already kept also writing diary every day. So we're asking, of course, now it's pandemic time. You are also covering what's happening around, right? He said, yeah, of course. I think that's the main focus of the diary during that time. So we are thinking it will be a good idea. We have a special place on our website that can dedicate it to Kai, that to share his diaries. Like you say, it's day by day, or it's day by day record. It's very personal story, and it's compared with news. That one is more, like it's when I read it, it's so touching. It's like that's exactly what's happening around, and it's because through his life that it reaches different aspects of the society, different roles of persons, and different, like environment like that. So we get lucky. We can have like Kai's his diary at beginning just showed on our website. So that's one of the things that we are trying to do. Just bring more real stories of the city out. Yeah, that's work level. About like you said, the food. You can go ask more. Yeah.
So what was iChongqing's role in the book? So you guys helped to publish it, right? You approached Jorah and you said this would be really good as a novel, or is it a novel? I guess it was it was a book.
Like stories. Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So that's good. It's good. And if anybody's interested, the website I just showed is Jorah's personal. That's like your blog and the resource for the book as well, right? Is that right?
Yeah. When we were going through the editing, actually, the company was very, very the Beijing printing company, as well as my friends at iChongqing, was helping as sort of a literary agent. Were very serious about fact-checking everything, making sure that all of the claims that I made, and some of it, I felt like I was kind of going crazy through the process. In the middle of the book, I wasn't really sleeping. I was, Xiao would go to bed, my wife would go to bed, I would put an earbud in and watch YouTube videos and WHO press conferences almost all night. So I was saying all these things I had picked up, and when they started to say, you mentioned like 30%, 50% of the cases are asymptomatic, where did that come from? I have to say, something that was on TV, something I read. All I was doing was, 10 in the morning till 8 at night, like reading, consuming media, taking notes, and then 8 in the p.m., 2 in the morning was writing up my daily blog. So actually, being able to find this this resource, I put all this research down as the research part of that blog, just so that it would be a place people could read more scientific studies, the newest information and tips that are coming out. And I try to keep that updated. I think knowledge is really powerful.
Cyrus, where were you getting most of your information during this period? Was it coming from YouTube, or were you like me? I was engrossed in YouTube. It's just nonstop. But I'm curious, where were you?
Actually, Twitter was more of a resource for me, because I find Twitter is such an interesting social network, because I find there's just pure gold that you can find on there, but there's a lot of toxicity as have a lot. So you have to really weed through that. But that's also, the problem with Twitter and a lot of social media as well is, you have, some people that have very large followings that really don't understand the situation at all. And, and that's really, I get very personal when people start attacking, China, and the reason for that, very simple. My wife's from China. I lived there for 10 years. I have a passion for the country. And when they're saying stuff that is just, that is false, it just really gets me stirred up, and I want to and that's kind of how I started this YouTube channel, because I was like, I want to be a voice that can actually share some light on that. And, even here in Vancouver, we had some, generally speaking, Canada, much less racism than you'd ever experience in my home country of America, but we saw, let's say like a 500% increase in, hate crime against Asians, in the first couple of months of COVID. But that 500 increase might be like, okay, there was 2 cases last year and now there's 10, so it's not like there's not a large number, but percentage wise, it's a huge increase. But, I had a situation where, somebody had said a very racist comment in my vicinity, just talking about, it's like, oh, it's the damn Chinese and they're eating all this terrible food. It's like only Chinese, because, they can't afford to eat anything else. So they got to eat, and it's like, really? They can't afford to eat anything else? Like, and then the worst part, he's like, don't worry, I can say that my wife's Chinese. And it's like, oh my God, like. It's like my wife's Chinese as well. Like it doesn't give you the pass to be, arrogant and rude. It's just terrible. And so, and it's a tough situation. So I was finding and again, connecting with people on Twitter, YouTube that are on the ground. And that's why I always encourage people, you got to be on the ground or have had experience there to really be able to be knowledgeable about this.
Jorah, you were putting yourself out there extremely personally every day in a diary that was being picked up by media all over the world, being used in news broadcasts, being interviewed. Were you getting? I gotta imagine you were getting pushback from certain groups of people that were just saying you're promoting propaganda, or you don't know what you're talking about, or shut the hell up. What kind of stuff were you getting from the world pushing back on your stories as you were sharing them?
Yeah, quite a bit, but also quite a bit of positive feedback. And it was enough that I felt like this was definitely worthwhile to keep going. I mean, just in terms of doing the journal, when I used to do music and I used to work with a childhood friend, Il Gates, who's one of the reviewers for the book, very popular guy. We did a lot of music education, and we said, to write in a journal every day is the best way to be more creative, because you put all your thoughts and fears in a place, and then if you're worried about something, you let it go of it. It's in the journal. It's got a place in space-time, and your mind is clear to move on. So for me, the journal was a really healthy outlet. And I could have kept it to myself and just wrote on my computer and not published it. But I felt like, moving into a place where the knowledge comforted me and knowing there were things I could do gave me a feeling of agency. Whether it was like, okay, I've been to Burning Man. I've got a bunch of, masks and respirators and stuff. And when there was a worldwide mask shortage, having these things was a boon, was suddenly a plus. I'm a bit of a gadget person. I had all these gadgets. I got an air purifier because my wife had some allergies before. And I realized, okay, HEPA filters, air purifier can clean the air. All the little things I could do, getting proper sleep, boost your immune system. I mean, not having enough sleep cuts your immune system. So like good diet, good sleep, good exercise, all the things you can do gave me this agency. And I thought, well, if this makes me feel better, I want to share it with the world. But I had friends in Chongqing. I had a friend who said some of his family were nurses and doctors, and he said, "You're a writer. You're not qualified to talk about this," and actively was trying to shut down. He got really angry. He just thought, you're not the right person to be telling this story, and took it really personally. Got really mad at me. I had a friend who worked with like CDC in Canada that was literally saying, what is your background? English literature, creative writing, not science, right? Yeah, you're a great writer, but maybe you should stick with fiction, because this mask hysteria that they called it. He said, quit telling everyone to wear a mask. We're washing our hands. That's good enough. And for months, I had tons of pushback about telling everyone, you just got to wear a mask. This is what's working in China and in the West, especially in Canada, because I'm Canadian. There was a ton of pushback. But on the other side, I had emails. I had tons of emails from friends later when the lockdowns came, and they said, my mother is 74. She's immunocompromised. We got her 3 months of canned food, water supply, a bunch of masks before everything sold out in her town. And we were totally comfortable and relaxed because we were early adapters, because you were an early adapter. And I was able to think, okay, being able to send these ripples of positivity really, really helped the people I know, my family and friends, to be able to also be a sense of calm in their vicinity as well. So I felt like that was a really good thing I was able to do. I think all of us probably have that experience, right?
Yeah, for sure. Before I go on to Cyrus and Xiao on that, you talked about in your book, I pulled a section out. I'm sorry, I'm going to cover you up, Xiao, but she's still there. She just covered up with words. But there was a segment, because you're sharing stories of things that are in the news and also personal stories. You say an unidentified man wore a gas mask onto a flight from Dallas to Houston. He was removed from the airliner after other travelers got upset and panicked. Again, it only seems like people's feelings are more important to authorities than public health, and that disappoints me. You can't guarantee the guy beside me isn't sick, then let him wear a mask. I project in a few more years, airlines will start using, and you went on to talk about a bit of airline safety in the future. But yeah, I mean, it was I remember those periods of time and how unnerving it was, understanding the value of a mask, understanding how important it was, seeing it in use, not only for the fact that it's going to protect you from excreting, expelling as much viral load or taking in a viral load, but it's also a minder. It makes your brain think, I've had this safety item on my face. I should be safer, And so it was funny, during your diary, you were seeing these things. And meanwhile, people were like back to that original comment where, how did you affect people's lives? I had people that were contradicting the media by listening to me. And they were actually saying, Matt, you're on the ground. Thank you. I went and I got more supplies, or I convinced I had one person who took his entire office. He was a boss of a company, and he took his entire office offline or online. He said, go home, work from home. It was like 100 people in his office. And think about the effect of that. He was able to compartmentalize all of his employees in a safe place. And he said that it was primarily because he was watching my videos from China and saying, holy crap, there's something going on that nobody else is paying attention to. And I'm going to react proactively based on Matt's information. And he sent me an email, and I felt, golly, out of all the hate and stuff that you might have gotten, you get one of those messages and you're like, I might have saved a grandma there potentially, or some sort of coincidental walk together where somebody might have bumped in, got somebody infected. Cyrus, did you get any stories while you were in this whole process from people that were able to glean something from your stories that kicked them into action?
Well, I think it was, I do have an interesting story about just, the masks and stuff that I wanted to share. What was quite interesting is my wife's parents are in Guangzhou, and, at the time, in the beginning, right, China didn't have enough masks. And so I actually remember calling up my dad, and he lives in Florida, where I'm originally from. And I said, Dad, I need you to just go to the hardware store and just try to get all of these N95 masks that you can. And, he was, this was really early. I mean, this was just starting to kick off in Wuhan, and everyone was starting to go into lockdown, and it was amazing. No one in America knew what was going on. Or paying attention, but he was just like, yeah, Cyrus, I went to 5 Home Depots today, and you wouldn't believe, like, everybody in there that's buying masks are Chinese. Like, I think they know what's coming, or they're buying it and sending it over there. So I just said, buy everything you can, buy as much as you can. Let's ship them over. So we shipped them over to the family in Guangzhou, and then they bought so much that they had enough for the second round, and like, all right, we're ready. And then what happened is obviously China had the mass production step up. They had plenty of masks, and then you couldn't buy them in America. But then my parents actually had like 200 masks, that they had saved. And so it was kind of they started giving it out to their friends. And so, I think that's an interesting story about the mask, but, so many times people don't want to wear the mask. And I think that was the tough issue is, going back to America with the freedom and all of these things. Still to this day, you're going to have a lot of people are going to argue over that point, and it's tough. I do want to address a super chat that we received earlier from Bruce.
Sure.
P. Sent a nice little super sticker saying keep it up. So I just want to give them a little acknowledgement. Thank you for the support to the channel and everybody. And again, if you have some questions, guys, throw them in the chats here. We're going to answer some questions later on. But very good to have people all over the world tuning into this. And Matt, go ahead and bring it back to you, buddy.
Matt,
Cyrus, I'm not.
Can I just?
Okay, go ahead. Yeah.
I
was just going to say.
Sorry, we got a bit of delay there. Okay, let me jump in for a second. Just the Dallas gas mask was something like this. This is my big one. It's an antivirus filter, and I could see how it could be a little bit scary, but the guy was really just trying to protect himself. And a lot of the people that read my blog initially, I encouraged them to start their own blogs when they got into lockdown, because I felt like it was really good therapy. But I had a friend who was the first one in Australia, in his part of Australia, Diehard Australia, literally called Diehard. It was wearing a mask, and he would go into town from the bush where he was living, and people would throw things at him and laugh at him and cough on him, because it was such a shock for them to see him with a mask. And that's part of the whole thing about the fear and misinformation. I feel like there was a lot of pressure for the first early adapters that said, okay, yeah, I want to wear a mask. But then all of a sudden, me wearing a mask made everyone else feel like they weren't doing enough, and that made them feel bad. So they wanted to mock the person. So in my book, at one point, I equated it to being like the first person to dance at a wedding. There's a lot of pressure
Right.
not to dance. Everyone's all awkward, but somebody gets up and says, "Okay, I'm dancing," and then they're joined by 2 or 3 more, and then the tide turns, and everybody's dancing. And I think your community, the people that were brave enough to be the first ones to wear a mask to the grocery store, was a little bit like trying to start a dance party. It was hard. Didn't always work too well. It was a bit awkward, but eventually the tide changed.
Cyrus, a housekeeping issue. I can't see that super chat, so I don't know why your chats aren't populating in the back end. So just let me know if you have something you want to touch on that's coming into your chat, and then we'll talk about it.
Okay.
Cyrus, when you were in Canada, what was it like when masks started being used? Was there any like sort of pushback, or was it weird for you? Were you one of the pioneers that went out first to Walmart or Meijer or something?
You know, I mean, now I'm American living here, and I think generally, you know, in Canada, people are just a little bit more, it's just a little bit more friendly, and just a little bit, you know, they're a little bit more easygoing. You know, they're not going to come on this thing like, well, that goes against my freedom. You know, you're not going to find that. You're not going to find that, generally speaking, in Canada. I'm sure there's some incidences, but. You know, I mean, it was really good. Again, like I'm in Richmond, and Richmond's a very interesting city because it is the 4th largest city in British Columbia. It is, predominantly, Chinese here. There's a very large Chinese population, well over 50% of Chinese here. So I actually made a video about this on YouTube highlighting, why British Columbia, specifically Vancouver and Richmond, why they did so good in getting ahead of COVID. And I said the reason why is because we didn't have to flatten the curve. We actually got ahead of the curve before the curve existed. So that was really a big thing. I mean, we just never really had, these very big infections. I mean, we'd have some days, I mean, if it's 40 cases a day in the city would be a huge number. And it's gone up recently now because kids are back in school and, things are reopening here. But overall, I mean, I think I highlighted a local supermarket here called TNT. They're the largest Asian supermarket in Canada, 26 stores around the country. And they were the first store to mandatory mask, to walk, to get into the store. And that was early. I think that was early March that they did that, which was really very early for, here in North America. But again, being an Asian supermarket, they had a lot of Chinese customers there. So, they were wearing masks already, and it wasn't really an issue. So, I mean, pretty much everyone's been wearing them, and it's been pretty, I mean, from what I've seen, I mean, we've done a great job here. It hasn't really been too bad.
It's so funny that Canadian stigma is so true, Oh, golly gee willikers. I just put my mask on, Don't you know? You just got to take care of your fellow man,
Yeah. Hello, 60 accent.
Yeah, a little bit. It's funny because. Okay, go ahead. Go.
I was just gonna say, it's a quote I read. I thought it was quite interesting. Some people think about I have rights, and other people think I have obligations. And in a pandemic, I feel like that's a big difference. People that are focused on their personal rights. It's good. It's good to have rights. It's good to have freedom. But when your right to infect someone else is more important to you than the obligation of the society and your part to work together, that's when you get a lot of destructive behaviors, and this kind of pandemic is out of control. When people think about it as like I have an obligation to my family and my city and the people to be healthy and to do my part, I think Canada really did a good job with that. China did a good job, and a lot of countries did a really good job with that.
We got a super chat here from Trevor Norman. My niece is a medic in a Chinese PLA. I just wish my government in the UK had heard what she told me about the virus before it hit UK. Thanks, Trevor. That is exactly the point that I was about to bring up before you talked there, Jorah. Is the fact that you were you were sharing your story. Cyrus was sharing his story. Xiao was sharing news on the ground in Chongqing, and I was doing daily videos live as this thing was happening. And it, Cyrus, you mentioned that BC was learning from it was actually quite easy to see what needed to be done, because you were seeing what was happening in a country that was where it sort of was originating and dealing with it originally. So you're like, we're going to do whatever it takes to not become this situation. And it's so crazy that other countries came in and made even worse blunders than China.
And what's interesting is we saw it really early, because we had friends here that started pulling their kids out of school, in late January. And I have to be completely honest. I was just like, come on, it's getting a little extreme. Like, I know there's a virus kicking off, but we're in Canada. We're probably going to be okay. Maybe we'll get a little bit. And they're like, oh no, it's going to come. Like, it's like, we're definitely going to be more precautious over this. And I think that's also one of the things that we can talk about is just basically that Chinese mentality. I love what Kai said there. Is this a right or is this an obligation? And I think that's one of the things that, I want people to really understand more about China is the fact that, obviously in China, culturally, it is more about the community. And, again, we talked about this earlier, Matt, where, Chinese people were saying, look, I have one chance to go home. I get you 1 week holiday. 51 weeks I'm working, I get 1 week off, and this is my time to go home. However, there's a virus kicking off. I'm not going to go home. I'm going to sacrifice that holiday because that's what I need to do for my country and my community. And, that was amazing, to hear stories like that. And, that is just shows, again, China had a very short-term pain for long-term gain. And that is a huge difference. And they were able to do that. And we just did not see that happening. I have a friend that's in the UK, and he just told me that they're going ready for lockdown. So he said, yeah, the government's announced that today's Monday. Okay, starting on Saturday, these flights from the UK to travel to the UK to France is now going to be banned. So everyone's like, first thing, let's go to France. Like, where they're going to ban it on Saturday. So we've got 4 days of holiday. Let's get there, enjoy it, and then come back. And it's like, well, that's not really how it's going to work, guys. Like you realize you'd go and then bring it back with you. That's and I guess on the UK government, you need to do that overnight, right? Because that's the only way that you're going to effectively lock it down is to just do it starting now. Not give them 5 days a head start.
We saw that actually when I think Wuhan had a 1 day or 8 hour window when they were going to be at 8 p.m. tonight. We're locking down the city, and a ton of people went on their vacation early. We saw with Lombardy in northern Italy, everyone rushed to the south. And I think the quarantines and the lockdowns have to happen under the radar because people just don't get it. A lot of people, some people get it, some people don't get it, but enough people say, let's flee under the radar, and then it's like you're spreading the virus. That's not what you need to do.
Just to let you know, in all honesty, I was one of the guys that jumped out. I left China.
That's good.
I know I was going to get shit for it in the comment section if I didn't admit it, because some people are going to say it. But when we did go to America during the first day of the lockdown, it was like that last time that you could get into America. I was astonished because we were ready to quarantine. We were ready to do the 14 days. We were ready to do all these things, and we were ready to be directed to do those things because it was the right thing to do. And it should have been the force of the American government to do it. But we walked literally right into America and literally went straight to an Airbnb and quarantined ourselves voluntarily for 14 days. Did the same thing when we returned to China, but it was not voluntary at that point in time. They actually put us in a quarantine hotel, and it was cathartic and actually nice to know that we were in a country when we came back to China that was taking it so seriously and so seriously. Now, Xiao, from the perspective of iChongqing, you were publishing news from inside the city. You're this media entity. What were you getting from the outside? What were things? Were you contributing information to the greater greater collective unit of journalism? And what were you seeing? Were you seeing any pushback from people that were saying what China's doing might not be so right, and we're going to do a little differently? And could you give us some insight from that, from a media company point of view? I'm curious.
Okay, so at the beginning, when the situation was really hard in China, like the feedbacks we got on our social media, many express their wishes and their prayers like that. During when time was kind of hard, So that is like it's quite touching, I would say, because many messages at that time we got is like prayers goes to China. Hope you can be well very soon. Yeah, like that. There are more pushbacks, doubt about the virus things afterwards. When the situation got easier here and got harder abroad. The not that nice comments there were. Yeah. That's the thing. From my point of view, it's like well, it's like kind of blame thing, like going on, right? When China's got better and when the outside world is like undergoing what China has undergone. Yeah, but even during that time, when the situation get easier here, we are as media as us, and also I saw many like state media or whatever, like the English channels of China. What we did actually, we do put our experience, also this content out. For example, like the prevention handbook, we translated into, we got Chinese one at first, right? And then we translated into English and we publish on our website. And also we also give this to other English platforms to share, because we want to, like, this is experience we have got, we want to share with more. And there are some measures like the different departments or people were taking, that we were collecting that information when the situation here was better, and we try to share with broader audience when when the world is kind of under hard way, under pandemic. But still, there are good comments, but also bad ones. Thank you.
Just real quick, for those of you that are just joining, my name is Matt. I'm with the Xiao Nation. We're joined by Cyrus on his YouTube channel, Xiao from the iChongqing Facebook and YouTube page. And we're talking with Jorah Kai, who's the author of a series, like a diary series that's put into a book. Basically, his entire pandemic period, he created a journal, daily journal, and it infuses his personal life, the news of the day, local kind of goings on. At one point in time, Jorah, you mentioned that lockdown was just happening, and you were kind of losing the idea of what a normal day was, and you heard some people playing outside, and tell us about that, because I mean that was squashed pretty quick, eh?
Yeah, I remember the morning. It was all of a sudden, like, the sun just came out, parted the clouds, a ray just shone right into my bedroom. The dogs crawled over to it, and sat in that sun ray. A moment later, there was children, balls dribbling on the ground, children screaming, and it just felt totally normal for a minute. And I thought, well, maybe the last week has been a dream. Like this, just maybe things I can just go outside and sing and dance and play and just be a normal person. Then this loudspeaker came on, and I don't know if it was my school, the campus I live on, or the street, and the local government or whatever, but this voice kind of came on, like this authoritarian, like, "Hey, everyone, it's not safe. Go back to your homes." And it just felt really shocking again. That like sort of moment of sunshine and play. And then the voice came. Everyone sort of went back inside, and Shaolin and I went over up to. We had a parking garage that was sort of isolated and distanced from everyone. We were able to kind of view over kind of the hill we were on and see some people walking around below, but it felt safe, and we got a bit of sunlight, did a bit of salsa dancing and that kind of thing. But yeah, it was quite strange, really quite strange. If I can say one thing about information quickly before we jump on, yeah, I feel like it's really interesting. Of course, iChongqing, we worked really hard to get the information out. I think there were many heroes around. I remember when Italy had the height of the northern crisis, the Lombardy region, where you had these really wealthy older people, and they were actually, from the reported news, the front care workers were having to make these impossible decisions, like who was going to get a ventilator, and basically euthanizing some very old patients because they did not have enough equipment, so they would give them morphine, make them comfortable, and say this 40-year-old person has a better chance to live. And it was really tragic. And some of the stories coming on, people would come on social media and say, look, we heard about this in China. We didn't take it seriously. What's happening here is like a war. It's like a battle. We're in a battlefield. And you in America or in Canada, around the world, if you haven't been here yet, you got to take it seriously. And it was really shocking. So for me, I feel that there was like a failure of nations to learn from each other's experiences, and it almost felt like lemmings taking turns going over a cliff at times. But on the bright side of things, we had these sort of heroes of YouTube and people sharing their experience and saying, okay, well, we don't have a nationally mandated plan, but we have people on the ground sharing their experience, and people learned a lot from the individuals, the local heroes,
I think people actually learn it that way. People.
Nope. We're losing. Nope, we're having some technical difficulties.
I think you're coming back. I lost you for a second.
All right, we've lost Matt currently.
I'm sorry. I think I broke the show. I apologize to everybody watching there. Am I back? Are we live? Okay.
Jorah, I can hear you. I cannot hear Matt. I believe he's coming.
Okay.
Okay. If everybody can still hear, let's keep it going. Can everybody hear me? Jorah,
Yeah,
can you hear me? Xiao, you can hear me?
Yes.
All right. I've asked Matt to go ahead and exit and then re-enter. I think he's having some problems. I'm going to take this time, and what we're going to do is just answer a couple super chats. So Richard Kung sent out a happy Mid-Autumn Festival to everybody. So everybody, I think many of you know this year is really special. October 1st is the China National Day, of course, and it is also Mid-Autumn Festival. So it's a fantastic double holiday there in China, and it's just a really great time to celebrate. 2020 has been a tough year for everybody. So, the little double holiday on October 1st is going to be great. Eat some mooncakes. So, Richard, thank you for sending in that super chat. Very much appreciated. We got another one. Arthur Larson, big supporter, saying that most Americans still don't know about the handbook. That's true. I think, that's why we're wanting to do this live stream to get more information out there. And, it's a tough one, because I think what we're seeing here in the West, Kai, what I'm seeing here, and certainly looking back in America, I think a lot of Americans are almost like, you know what, I've had enough of this. Like, I just want to get on with. I just want to get past this, but it's almost like you haven't done the work, though, right? You haven't locked down. You're just wanting to get back to that freedom so fast. So I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know.
It's hard to say, and I definitely think doing some research for this book, I looked at the H1N1 pandemic of 1918-20, known as the Spanish flu.
Yeah.
I do believe this virus, for a couple of things, I don't think we're going to see the mass casualties we saw a century ago. For one,
Right.
I don't think it's as fatal, and for two, I think our science has advanced to the point where we're much better at treating things. And as long as we do that, what we talked about, everyone was talking about months ago, flatten the curve, allow space for the healthcare workers to function, we're going to see a lot better results in communities. But that being said, if you look back to the first, second, and third wave of the Spanish flu, the first one people really, managed. Like I've heard it said on different reporting. Psychologically, it's really hard for people to do the right thing, to be afraid or be home for more than 2 or 3 weeks at a time. So that kind of burnout, I think, is entirely natural, but we really need to buckle down in the UK and the US, especially Canada. Trudeau announced we've got a second wave we're in, and people are burned out, but the science doesn't support the burnout. Like it doesn't really matter if you're tired. You got to be resilient. You got to keep working hard, because when people give up trying to protect themselves, that's when a lot of people get sick.
Yeah, absolutely. And just to follow up on that little super chat from Trevor Norman, saying still got stupid people in the UK, anti-mask, anti-vaccine, demonstrating in London. I just wish they would think of other people's safety. I think that kind of goes on to that point that we're talking about, where in North America right now, or in Western countries, many people are very sick of they're wanting 2020 to end, right? We want the pandemic to end, and I think we're also seeing, I've started to see a little bit of jealousy even towards China right now, saying, oh, look at China, you're the only country whose GDP is actually expected to grow this year. And, look at China, and of course, then that leads to new conspiracy theories saying, oh, China released this on purpose, kind of an economic sabotage to other countries. Now look at them. They're the only ones prospering. But it's also, they also did a tremendous amount of work, as you know, and as you've documented in that book, the lockdown and how effective that was, and that difference between right and obligation. And I agree. I think it is, we have to realize that, we will get through this, but it's going to take all of us, to do our things, right? We need to stay, it's not the time to go traveling right now. It's not the time to, to go to participate in these massive, protests and demonstrations and things like that. We just need to be respectful. I think do we have Matt back in here? Was he able to join in?
maybe still have problem on his side. It's kind of, from my side, I saw him is like frozen.
Yep. All right. Yeah, I can't. Matt, are you? Matt, your audio's bad, buddy.
Artifacting, yeah.
Okay, you know what? Let me continue, Matt. You keep trying to. If you can hear me, Matt, you could keep trying to work on your audio. I've got another super chat that we're going to answer here. This is from Bai Ray, just sending a little, support, a little sticker saying you are amazing. So Bai Ray is also a big, contributor and a big supporter of my channel. So just want to say thank you for that. And it's just so good to, to have everybody here tonight, to come and talk about this book. Let's do this. Kai, do you want to add anything, or do you want to start taking maybe some questions from the group? Can everybody hear me?
I can hear you. I think.
Okay.
If I can say one thing, I think I'd love to. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
So one thing I'd like to mention is, with all the misinformation we talked about is definitely alarming and upsetting, and different rumors and theories. So I think spreading of good science and good information is really, really important. We all have been working hard with our channels and blogs and various things to spread good information. One little victory I actually had, I have an uncle Victor, who was formerly ER surgeon in Vancouver for most of his career, and he moved to Victoria. And when I ended up writing my book, I passed my mask protocol by him because I was getting so much kickback from people, even people in Health Canada, and they were saying, quit it with the mask stuff. So I said, Uncle Victor, you're a doctor. I wrote this thing about why masks are good. Can you make sure it's right and everything? And he actually wrote back and he said, yeah, it looks really good. Add something about how it stops you from, not only does it prevent some virus, it stops you from touching your face, and that's important too. And then I said, well, Dr. Victor Wood, thank you so much for that. I'm going to send you my book, my blog, so you can read that too. And I think it inspired him to write a letter, because a week or two later he wrote a letter to Vancouver Sun and various other papers, and they published his letter basically saying, with all of these questions about what is enough with a lockdown, he would recommend everybody wear a mask, everybody stay home, close the schools for now, distance learning. He suggested very, very strong, similar to Chinese measures. And I think in the places that read his letter and places that followed that kind of thing, there was a really good result. And my mom got that letter, sent it to her friends, Minister of Education and PEI as well. And they're doing, in terms of all the Maritimes, very, very well. So I feel like all of us who were able to spread good information rather than fear and hysteria, really were able to help people, and that was really amazing. And even now, there's a lot of studies that have come out about vitamin D. There was a new study with JAMA that said you're 77% more likely to be in the hospital.
Yeah.
I lost it. Can you hear me?
Oh, Matt's
Am I
back? Matt is back. I think, you know what? We lost Kai, and now Matt's back. So, Matt, did you have a super chat come in on your side? Because I can't see yours.
You get enough
just
sun
this one
every day.
from Bay Ray.
No, I saw that one. That one was on mine. I think there was one. I wrote down the question because I think it was on another channel, and it was saying, "What are your thoughts on Trump's speech to the UN blaming China for the spread of COVID?" Matt, do you want to answer that, or do you want me to? We can both talk about that.
Well, I just think it's quite a deflection. He's trying to do whatever it takes to make himself look good and try to make the problem not his own. So, I mean, it's just more of the same. It's just the same argument over and over. He's a schoolyard bully. It reminds me of when I was a kid, and I was never really good at those arguments on the schoolyard where somebody would come up and say, your mama's fat. And then you'd say, your mama's this. And it's just let's focus on some more important things rather than mudslinging here and actually try to find solutions to the problem. That's my opinion.
I agree. And I think with Trump, as far as blaming China, I kind of feel that it's really his only card left to play. I mean, there's documents stating that the U.S. knew about this in January. I mean, they their intelligence. Gosh, you have to imagine the U.S. government. They're going to have these intelligent information available, and the president was briefed on that. And the reality was, I think a lot of it, with Trump, is one of the things that I pointed out in one of my earlier videos he has such a loyal following in America. I mean, if you are a Trump supporter, I mean, you are Trump to the bone. You love him.
Yeah.
So I'm just saying, imagine if Trump would have just swallowed his pride and in March would have just came out with a mask. I mean, could you imagine if he just said, look, you know what? There's a worldwide pandemic. I think we should start wearing masks. I mean, that would have been amazing for America. It really would have curved. Having so many people that support Trump. I mean, they would do anything he says. But however, for months and months. I mean, I'm going to say it's 3, maybe 4 months until in maybe longer. I forget when he was. It was just recently, maybe a month ago. Trump finally wore a mask out to the first time, and it's really his only card left to play is the way that I would say it. And that's it's unfortunate. And I think I look at like Jack Ma and Alibaba. I mean, sending all these supplies around the world. I mean, it was amazing. Jack Ma opened a Twitter account, specifically because of COVID, and his first tweet that he ever sent was a picture of all of these PPE that he's sending to China. And he's like, we're just sending these to our friends in America. We want you to know we got your back, and that's that, he purposely did that. Alibaba started an online community for doctors around the world, that they could all upload information and they basically could have an online warehouse, of information. And it's like, look, we're working in this together. And, and it's just like attack. So it's a tough one.
You can't win. You make masks, you send them out. You're exploiting. You don't give masks, then you're or you don't help out with certain things, then you're ignorant or not empathetic. So it just depends on what your political motivations are as to how you're going to spin it and to blast China or blast whomever. I mean, there's a lot of situations in the world right now where people that might be rightly commended, and instead they're being ridiculed, and it's kind of sad,
Yeah. One other super chat I want to address, a little sticker from Titan Xie. So I just want to say thank you for the support. Thank you guys for everybody that has taken time out of your day to join us on this live stream. We certainly love doing these live streams. We love connecting with you guys, answering questions, talking about China. Obviously a great passion for all of us here. And it's so great to have, Kai here talking about the book, and, Xiao from iChongqing, Matt, of course, Xiao Nation, and myself. It's just so awesome to have everybody here. So this is great.
Yeah. Can you hear me okay, guys? Am I in the group here talking?
You're back to normal. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Good. Okay. So one final question before we wrap this up. We're a little over an hour, and I'm thinking going forward, we'll touch on each person here. Going forward, what is your prediction for the future of this pandemic for the world, and for the future of the pandemic in particular here in China? I'll go last. I guess we'll let Jorah go last, because he's going to bring in some knowledge from his book and stuff, and we'll be able to have him plug the book. I guess I'll start. So I'm worried. I think that all of us heard that the fall was going to bring a second wave, and all I hear is surprise that the fall is coming, and there's more lockdowns. People are astonished that the scientists were in fact correct, that there will be a second wave, and that kind of makes me fear what we have in store, because I was reading a lot about the Spanish flu, and there was a lot of this sort of people denying and negating, and there was a lot of personal opinions brought into the situation around the Spanish flu. And the Spanish flu had multiple huge waves that came up. I feel like we live, well, at least me, Xiao, and Jorah, Cyrus, you're on a different island, but we're on an island here in China that is very well managed with regards to the virus. And I feel like life here will exist in a better and better way. Pockets will open up and they will be tackled. But I'm very nervous as to the way the rest of the world is going to deal with what is the inevitable second wave of this thing. I'm curious. What do you think, Cyrus?
I mean, I think we're a long way, here in the West. And I think, again, one of the things that I'm really proud of China for doing, and it was just kind of amazing thing knowing that, you can lock down in China. And this is the thing that was really interesting. I had a lot of people here in Canada argue about this point, is they said, well, the reason that, China was able to do this is because the Chinese government forces these people, to lock down. They have no freedom there. They have no, they cannot go out in the streets. They cannot do these things. That is a violation of human rights. And I said, okay, I'll break it down to you. You are correct. The Chinese government would not let you get out. But the problem that you don't see is this: Chinese people are not going to want to go out, right? That's the thing you miss. I mean, Chinese people are not going to go out in a pandemic and say, I want my freedom. I want to go do this. I want to do that. And that's the difference, because we're seeing it here in Canada. We're seeing the Chinese community here I still have friends here in Canada that have not gone to the grocery store. They have just switched completely to ordering online, because it's like, I have no chance am I going to a grocery store. They have not eaten out in a restaurant. They have not gone out. I mean, they go out only when necessary here, in almost October. And they've been doing that since, February. So, I mean, that's the thing. It is a cultural difference there. And here's another point where I want to say is that I have several families that we know here. My daughter goes to school here. We've had several kindergarten families that have pulled their kids out and have gotten back to China. They have simply said, look, North American governments, we don't have trust in them. Even here in Canada, Canada has done much better than America. But for instance, the big issue for them is, right now, kindergartners, they don't make masks mandatory. They say masks are voluntary here. We don't want to instill that fear into the kids. And the Chinese parents are like, no, install that fear. Like, we should have mandatory masks because it will guarantee safety. And they just feel, they're so paranoid about it that they said, you know what? I know that China is doing a good job. I want to go back to China. And we've had several families pull their kids out of school, go back to China, and just have that faith in the Chinese government. So I think that's where you're really seeing a lot of Chinese, they are going to trust, the Chinese government because, they instituted these lockdowns, but also it's culturally. I mean, you could say that they worry too much about it. It's to the extreme where no one wants to go out at all. But if you take that approach, you're going to be able to get through this much faster. I think, brighter days ahead for China. I mean, pretty much everything's back to normal, for the most part. So, I think in the West, we're still going to have to deal with this all winter long.
Xiao, what is your thoughts from Chongqing? What do you think China's looking like, and what do you think the world's going to be like for the immediate future of this pandemic?
Well, I would say from my personal view experience here, actually, whether it's possibly here, right? And I'm kind of more confident that maybe it won't. You're talking about the second wave, right? But I can see the preparations is still in many places. Public actually is strict that we are trying to keep the second wave from happening, right? Like that case. So I think preventions. Still, everybody is have this kind of mentality that we need to prevent, just doing necessary measures. For example, going to public place, wear masks, and also in this for example, the coming National Day holiday and the Mid-Autumn Festival holiday, right? So I can say in many scenic spots here around Chongqing, they still have this kind of strict measures to keep the tourist flow to a limited capacity compared with before. And there is you need to reserve your ticket beforehand so they can keep count limited number of getting in still. And also into the cinemas, you sit next to one, there's nobody sit to you, it's always one and then empty and another one like that. So all these measures is still taking, and I think the relevant departments and something will continue, to as a top-down level, guide us. Like Cyrus said, we are pretty trust our government and the our mainstream media, because I think we trust the news that they give us, the signal they give us. So I think most if with the experience from first one, right, January from that time, and I think we'll get better prepared and like that.
What is your thought on the world though? Outside of China, how do you think the virus is going to go? Do you think they're not as prepared as China?
Okay, from my point of view, the China do the thing in a very united way, everybody follow, right? You cannot see like protesters on the street say, I don't want masks, I don't want that. So
Yeah.
this thing does not. I think this kind of pandemic, this is in fact people like this thing can really maybe can only be contained when the people are really united together. They are similar, like take the same action. You know, it will take a quite pain in a short time, but then it's over. You come back to it faster. If like everybody at the beginning is like scattered and I have my own way of doing things, at the beginning you feel fine. Like I'm okay, I just do whatever I want, but I do things as my habit. But it's just last a long run. You cannot fight against the pandemic in that way. So that's my thing. If some country they can be more united, like people can act in a more how to say, more unified way. Yeah, unified way. I think that can work. Yeah.
Jorah, what do you think?
Can you hear me live? I was hearing a lot of artifacting from Xiao. You got a good signal for me?
I can hear you. Go for it.
Yeah, you're good, bud.
Okay, perfect. Sure. Yeah. So, sort of final thoughts. I feel like really the important thing, and again with my book, that to me is really important is knowledge is power. And this virus is not so sneaky. We're not all going to die, and it's probably not going to hit levels near the Spanish flu pandemic. But the main thing is for us is to change our behaviors, to be responsible and informed. And in my book, I kind of equated that to learning how to become an astronaut. You know, a regular person jumping out of an airlock will certainly die, but an astronaut has a spacesuit and training, and most certainly will manage to do a spacewalk and come back in their shuttle. So if you can think of it that way, there's a great masterclass by Chris Hadfield, famous Canadian astronaut, on how to be a good astronaut. I'd recommend everybody check that out if they could. Get a free trial to masterclass or something. But really the knowledge power. Keep in touch with all of the news and updates. Like we have, we're going into the winter, which is a time for a lot of northern countries. We're going to be closing our windows, turning on the heating and stuffing places together. And of course, that can be really dangerous. But learning that an air purifier with a HEPA filter can take a lot of the particles out of the air. If it's possible to keep your windows and doors open a little bit, get that ventilation. Wear masks when you're in, you know, out of your.
We're losing you, Jorah.
With other studies, I think I got cut off earlier, but there was a study from JAMA in America. Oh, still here? Can you hear me?
Yeah, you're good.
Keep going. Give it a try. Yeah.
Okay. Just trying to get your half the daily level of vitamin D that would be a burn is what you need, or to take a vitamin D supplement to really boost your immune system, reduce those ACE2 receptors, make it much less likely you're going to get a bad case of COVID. So just getting the right sleep, exercise, diet, and if you're not getting enough sun, those kind of supplements to be healthy is really, really important. And they may sound like little things, but can really make a big difference to your family, to your grandparents' health, and to the macro resolution. So, we see places like Western Australia where they've managed to really contain things by taking certain procedures, and other parts of Australia have just been wide open and they have big problems. So I think just having those measures and being informed is a huge factor that will decide the second wave in our health this winter.
Real quick, if you couldn't quite hear what Jorah was talking about, I really like his analogy about being an astronaut. You could be flushed out of an airlock into space, and if you're not suited up like an astronaut, you're not going to survive very long. But China has provided everybody with the tools and the spacesuits and the things through experience to use, so that in case this situation does blow up in China, they can just open up their toolbox and they can suit up their astronaut armor and they can get through it. And if you're interested in Jorah's book, the links are down floating through the bottom of this screen. You can go to his website. The book is a diary, but it also has a lot of resources in the back of the book. It has a resource section and an interesting glossary, and it's just a nice tool for remembering. I think maybe as we get into the fall, if you are sort of a forgetful person like me, it might be nice to read the actual life of somebody that went through this day by day in China, and maybe you can say, okay, I remember how this went, and maybe I'm ready and prepared for if it does happen again. God forbid it doesn't. But anyways, I think we're going to wrap it up. I really appreciate. Oh,
Matt,
go ahead, Cyrus. You got something to say?
I do. I just want to address some super chats.
Yeah, sure.
So we've gotten a few in. So click left. Can't stand that Trump repeatedly said China virus. So right, Biden called him out as racist and a clown. We've addressed that. I mean, obviously, don't support Trump calling it the China virus. There's a lot of reports now coming out that COVID was around the world, well before it went off in Wuhan. So I think there's just so much of it that we still don't know. But obviously, a term like that, very racist, and certainly leading to a huge increase in these racist crimes against Asians in general. Super chat from Win-Win. I want to say thank you so much for the support to the channel. We've got a couple more. We've got Yeehaw1 says, thank you guys so much. So thank you so much for joining today and sending in some support. Very nice. And then also ZYZY also sending in a super chat. So
and
thank you guys.
Jayo.
Yeah, and then another Xiao chat as well. So just wanted to address those super chats before we wrap up. And again, just thank everybody for taking time out of your day to join us. And it was just an absolute pleasure. So Matt, go ahead and lead us off or close us up.
Well, that was good, Cyrus. Thank you so much, and thank you all for joining us. For those of you that don't know, we were all streaming together. So if you're watching on Jayo's Facebook or YouTube channel, thank you for joining. If you're watching from Cyrus's YouTube channel, thank you for joining. If you're watching via the iChongqing Facebook or YouTube channel, thank you for watching. Does anybody have anything? One final thing to say before we sign off?
I'm just going to say
thanks so much to you guys.
that was the worst. That was the worst thing from a moderator.
Yeah, come on, moderator.
we got a little delay. If I go leave you with Cyrus.
Okay, Jorah first.
I just wanted to say thank you, Matt. Thank you, Cyrus, and thank you, Xiao. It's been an absolute pleasure to be on the show, share the message, and we're all just trying to do our best to help everyone in this really uncertain, kind of dangerous time to have the best result they can, keep their mental health this winter, and stay healthy and stay active. So thank you so much for having me. It means a lot. I really appreciate the opportunity.
Absolutely.
You're very welcome.
Absolutely. Guys, I'll go next. I just want to wish everybody a really great Mid-Autumn Festival and also a China National Day. I mean, it's a double holiday coming in October 1st. I just want to share this because I think it's really cool. The last video that I posted on my channel, we did a little moon cake, Mid-Autumn Festival moon cake, and I partnered up with Ping An for the video. On the end of the video, there is an absolutely amazing Mid-Autumn Festival advert from Ping An. It is so good. It actually, honestly, my wife and I watched it together and made us both cry. It is so touching, and it's just so beautiful because it talks about all the tough things that we've been through in 2020 and just how that bright moon, we're going to have a beautiful bright moon on October 1st. And, that there's going to have a lot of hope for that. And that's really what I want to end. That's going to end for me is just saying, look,
that's a Mid-Autumn mooncake extravaganza, right?
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
So
I'm sharing it. So
okay,
everybody's
I just wanted to kind of send that one out just because it is it's a great video just talking about all the great things about this beautiful holiday and I think that's what we need is something to look forward to. And it said look the Mid-Autumn Festival, you have the beautiful moon. It's when times where families gather together. Maybe we're not going to do that as much this year because of COVID, but hopefully that full moon will give us some something to look forward to. And I would just want to thank everybody. Kai, thank you so much for joining. It was a pleasure to read that book and to go through that, just to have the diary. I mean, it brought me back so many memories of my time here in Canada. And I just love your quote. You had those 2 months to, are you going to improve yourself or are you going to destruct yourself? So it is.
Let's look at that real quick. So I didn't think we put it up yet. So
yeah,
anything we do before a pandemic will seem alarmist. Everything after will seem inadequate.
Yeah, that's so good.
Yeah. Very interesting. Okay, Jorah, Xiao, what do you got? Sign off?
Yeah, it's like thank you everybody for participating in this and this nice discussion, and also for the audience like watching and discuss like that. And one extra information is about Kai's book. I got a printed one. This one is already available on Amazon's Chinese market, and this overseas section will be out very soon. So if you're interested, this Kai's book can get from there. It's very nice inside. I just like Cyrus said, when read Kai's book, it reminds me of the special 2 months. Sometimes, you know, like maybe we're too busy at that time or doing this or what, or worry like that. And but this book really reminds us like the detailed things and related to our experience. Them it's special months. Yeah, I think we also will learn something from that already. So yeah, that's the thing. Thank you.
All right, guys. Did everybody, Jorah, did you do the final sign off? Yeah, I think so, right? I think we're good.
Yeah, thanks so much.
I think we're good.
Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you so much. If you're watching on Xiao, why don't you go to my channel? Xiao and Jorah are both from Chongqing, and I just finished my entire Chongqing series. So I have amazing videos as I hung out there. I climbed abandoned amusement park rides, roller coaster rides. I went into the deepest sinkhole in the world in Chongqing. I explored the Three Gorges Dam, which is not in Chongqing but is near to Chongqing. And I was able to really investigate the area. Please take a look. It's I invested a lot of time in producing those videos and really enjoyed sharing those. So thank you very much. Enjoy your Mid-Autumn Festival, and we'll catch you next time. Sounds good.
Thank you,
Bye,
everybody.
guys.